Have you ever walked into a crowded room and felt completely invisible? Not because nobody saw you, but because nobody truly understood you. You smiled. You joined the conversation. You laughed at the right moments. Yet, deep inside, there was an unsettling feeling that you were standing behind an invisible wall while everyone else lived on the other side. For some people, this feeling comes and goes. For others, it becomes a way of life. What if the loneliness you feel isn't simply bad luck? What if it isn't because you're unattractive, uninteresting, or broken? What if the very thing that allows you to see the world differently also makes it harder to find people who truly understand you? Intelligence is often presented as a gift. Society celebrates brilliant minds, creative thinkers, and people who ask difficult questions. We admire inventors, philosophers, scientists, and visionaries. We assume that intelligence opens every door. But there is another side that almost nobody talks about. The side where intelligence quietly isolates people, the side where every conversation feels painfully shallow, the side where overthinking destroys peace, the side where you begin to question everything, including yourself. This is the hidden psychology of why intelligent people often end up alone. Before we begin, understand one important thing. This isn't about IQ scores or academic success. Some of the smartest people never attended elite universities. Intelligence is not measured only by grades or degrees. It is reflected in curiosity, self-awareness, pattern recognition, emotional depth, and the courage to question what everyone else accepts without thinking. And strangely enough, these same qualities can slowly separate a person from the crowd. Most people spend their lives searching for comfort. Highly intelligent people often spend their lives searching for truth. Those are not always the same thing. Comfort asks you to fit in. Truth asks you to stand alone. From childhood, many intelligent people notice that they experience the world differently. While other children are satisfied with simple answers, they keep asking, why? One answer leads to another question. Every explanation opens another mystery. Curiosity becomes a habit, and eventually a way of seeing reality itself. At first, this seems like a wonderful gift. Teachers praise curiosity. Taught Krentz encourage learning. People admire intelligence. But something begins to change. As the years pass, curiosity turns into constant observation. Instead of simply living, they start analyzing. Instead of reacting, they start questioning. Instead of accepting, they start investigating. Every conversation becomes a puzzle. Every friendship becomes something to understand. Every emotion becomes something to dissect. Without realizing it, they stop experiencing life naturally. They begin examining life from the outside. Psychologist Carl Jung once suggested that becoming deeply conscious of yourself can feel like a burden because awareness separates you from unconscious living. Most people move through life guided by habits, routines, and shared beliefs. But the more conscious you become, the harder it becomes to simply follow the crowd. You notice contradictions, you notice fake smiles, you notice manipulation hidden inside kindness. You notice insecurity disguised as confidence. You notice fear hiding behind success. And once you see these patterns, you cannot unsee them. Imagine watching a movie after someone has explained every special effect, every camera trick, and every plot twist. The magic disappears. For many intelligent people, something similar happens in everyday life. They see beneath appearances. Unfortunately, seeing beneath appearances often makes it difficult to enjoy them. This is where loneliness quietly begins, not because people reject them, but because they slowly stop feeling emotionally connected to ordinary conversations. Someone talks for an hour about celebrity gossip, someone else spends every weekend chasing social status, another person constantly seeks approval from strangers online. An intelligent observer listens politely, but inside a silent question appears. Is this really all there is? That question changes everything, because once you begin asking it, ordinary conversations no longer satisfy you. You crave meaning, you crave depth, you crave honesty. You want conversations that keep you awake at night, not because they create anxiety, but because they awaken something inside your mind. The problem is that those conversations are surprisingly rare. This creates an invisible distance between intelligent people and almost everyone around them, not because they believe they are better, but because they often feel different. Different is a lonely place. Modern psychology tells us that human beings survive through belonging. Our ancestors depended on tribes for protection. Being accepted meant staying alive. Being rejected often meant death. Even today, our brains are wired for connection. We want to belong. We want to be understood. We want someone to say, "I know exactly how you feel." But what happens when your thoughts constantly move in directions that very few people follow? You begin editing yourself. You stop asking difficult questions. You hide your deepest thoughts. You pretend to enjoy conversations that leave you emotionally exhausted. Little by little, authenticity is replaced by performance. And perhaps the saddest part is that almost nobody notices. From the outside, intelligent people often appear calm, independent, and emotionally strong. Inside, many are quietly fighting one of the deepest forms of loneliness. The loneliness of feeling unseen, not physically unseen. Psychologically unseen. There is a profound difference. Physical loneliness means nobody is around you. So psychological loneliness means people are around you, yet nobody truly understands who you are. That kind of loneliness is infinitely heavier. Research in psychology has repeatedly shown that meaningful relationships depend less on the number of people in your life and more on the quality of emotional understanding between them. A person with one genuine connection can feel deeply fulfilled. Another, surrounded by hundreds of acquaintances, can feel completely empty. Intelligent people often discover this truth earlier than others. They stop chasing popularity. They stop chasing attention. Instead, they begin searching for resonance, someone who understands silence, someone who appreciates complexity, someone who doesn't run away from uncomfortable truths. Unfortunately, finding such people can take years, sometimes decades. And during that search, many begin believing something is wrong with them. They wonder why friendships fade so easily, why relationships feel emotionally shallow, why they always feel like outsiders looking through a window into everyone else's lives. The painful irony is that the very qualities that make them capable of extraordinary insight also make ordinary connection more difficult. Awareness is a gift, but every gift carries a price. And intelligence often asks for its payment in solitude. Yet this is only the beginning of the story, because the greatest reason intelligent people end up alone isn't the world around them. It's the silent battle taking place inside their own minds, and that battle is far more powerful than most people realize. The greatest prison is not built with steel bars. It is built with thoughts. Most people believe intelligent individuals are constantly thinking because they enjoy it. They imagine a brilliant mind as a powerful machine that effortlessly solves problems, creates ideas, and understands the world. But they rarely see what happens after everyone else has gone to sleep, when the room becomes silent, when the phone is finally put away, when there is nothing left to distract the mind. That is when the real battle begins. For an intelligent person, the mind rarely switches off. It replays conversations, it questions every decision, it searches for hidden meanings inside ordinary moments. A simple sentence spoken by a friend can become an hour-long investigation. A facial expression can become evidence. A delayed text message can become a mystery. The average person forgets these moments within minutes. An analytical mind carries them for days. This is the paradox of intelligence. The same brain that can solve complex problems can also create problems that never existed. Psychologists call this rumination. It is the habit of repeatedly thinking about the same situation without reaching peace. The mind believes it is searching for answers. In reality, it is often feeding uncertainty. Imagine standing in front of a mirror that reflects not your face, but every mistake you have ever made. Every embarrassing memory, every opportunity you missed, every word you wish you had never spoken. Now imagine looking into that mirror every single day. That is how overthinking feels. The intelligent mind remembers details that others forget, not because it wants to suffer. Because it is constantly searching for patterns, it believes that if it can understand everything, it can prevent future pain. But life does not reward complete understanding. Life rewards acceptance. And acceptance is often the hardest lesson for people who need every question answered. Carl Jung once wrote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Intelligent people spend years trying to make everything conscious, every emotion, every fear, every desire, every contradiction. Yet there comes a point where endless analysis stops creating wisdom and starts creating paralysis. The mind becomes trapped inside itself. One thought creates another. One question gives birth to 10 more. Eventually, the search for certainty becomes endless. Nothing feels final. Nothing feels complete. Nothing feels safe. This is why intelligent people often struggle with simple decisions. Not because they cannot decide, because they can imagine too many possibilities. They see every potential outcome, every hidden consequence, every future regret. While others confidently choose one path, they continue analyzing 20 different futures. From the outside, this looks like hesitation. From the inside, it feels like survival. But survival has a cost. The cost is peace. Over time, another invisible enemy appears: perfectionism. People often mistake perfectionism for having high standards. They are not the same thing. High standards inspire growth. Perfectionism creates fear. The intelligent mind imagines the perfect conversation before speaking, the perfect project before starting, the perfect relationship before trusting, the perfect version of itself before feeling worthy. And because perfection never arrives, action is delayed, dreams remain ideas. Words remain unspoken, opportunities quietly disappear. Years later, regret begins replacing possibility. Perhaps the cruelest trick of intelligence is this: the more clearly you see your own flaws, the less extraordinary you believe you are. This is known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with limited knowledge often overestimate themselves. People with deeper understanding usually underestimate themselves because they recognize how much they still do not know. That is why some of the loudest voices in the room know the least, and some of the wisest remain silent. Silence, however, is often misunderstood. People assume the quiet person has nothing to say. In reality, they may simply be filtering hundreds of thoughts before choosing one sentence. By the time they decide what to say, the conversation has already moved on. Slowly, they begin speaking less, not because they lack opinions, because they have learned how easily words are misunderstood. This creates another layer of loneliness. They stop explaining themselves. They stop correcting misunderstandings. They simply smile and let people believe whatever they want. From the outside, this looks like confidence. Inside, it often feels like surrender. The mind also develops another dangerous habit. It begins predicting pain before it arrives. It remembers every betrayal, every disappointment, every broken promise. Then it quietly whispers, "What if it happens again?" Without realizing it, intelligence transforms into emotional caution. Walls are built, trust becomes difficult, vulnerability feels dangerous. The heart asks for connection. The mind demands proof, and proof is never enough. Because certainty does not exist, many intelligent people believe they are protecting themselves. But sometimes they are protecting themselves from the very happiness they desperately seek. The tragedy is not that they cannot love, it is that they struggle to stop analyzing love long enough to experience it. Every relationship becomes an investigation, every disagreement becomes evidence, every silence becomes a warning. Instead of feeling, they evaluate. Instead of trusting, they calculate. Instead of living, they observe. Eventually, they begin feeling like strangers inside their own lives, as if they are watching themselves from a distance instead of actually being present. This is the hidden cost of a mind that never rests. Because no matter how intelligent you become, you cannot think your way into peace. Peace begins where endless analysis ends. And that realization changes everything. Because the next challenge intelligent people face is even more painful than overthinking. It is the realization that the more deeply they understand human nature, the harder it becomes to trust it. There comes a moment in the life of every deeply intelligent person when they stop asking one question. Can I trust this person? Instead, they begin asking something far more dangerous. What are they hiding? At first, this question feels like wisdom. After all, experience teaches us that not everyone is honest. People wear masks, they exaggerate, they manipulate, they say one thing while secretly wanting another. The intelligent mind notices these contradictions almost instinctively. A smile that doesn't reach the eyes. A compliment that sounds slightly rehearsed. A promise made too quickly. A story that changes in subtle ways each time it is told. Most people never notice these details, but the analytical mind does. It collects them quietly, almost like pieces of a puzzle. Over time, those pieces begin forming patterns, parls become predictions, predictions become beliefs, and beliefs slowly become walls. The strange thing about intelligence is that it often makes people excellent observers but cautious participants. Instead of simply enjoying a friendship, they begin evaluating it. Instead of experiencing love, they begin measuring consistency. Instead of accepting people as they are, they search for hidden motives, not because they want to judge, because they desperately want certainty. But human beings are wonderfully inconsistent. Even honest people make mistakes. Even loyal people become afraid. Even kind people sometimes act selfishly. Life is too complex to fit neatly into logical equations. Yet the intelligent mind keeps trying. It wants every action to have a reason, every emotion to have an explanation, every betrayal to make sense. When those answers never arrive, disappointment quietly settles in. Friedrich Nietzsche once warned that when you stare into the abyss also stares into you. Most people interpret those words as a warning about darkness. But there is another meaning. The longer you study human nature, the more human nature begins changing the way you see the world. You become less surprised by deception, less surprised by selfishness, less surprised by hypocrisy. Eventually, cynicism begins disguising itself as realism. You tell yourself you are simply seeing reality. But slowly, you stop expecting goodness altogether. That is one of the greatest dangers of intelligence. Knowledge without hope becomes despair. Awareness without compassion becomes isolation, because if you assume everyone will eventually disappoint you, you stop giving people the opportunity to prove you wrong. Trust disappears before relationships even begin. This creates a painful contradiction. Intelligent people often long for deep connection more than anyone else. Yet they unintentionally make deep connection almost impossible. Not because they push people away intentionally, because emotional safety becomes more important than emotional intimacy. Imagine carrying an invisible shield everywhere you go. It protects you from arrows, but it also prevents hugs. That is exactly what emotional defenses do. Every disappointment adds another layer. Every betrayal makes the shield thicker. Every broken promise makes it heavier. Eventually, the shield becomes so heavy that even genuine love struggles to reach the heart behind it. Carl Rogers, one of the most influential psychologists in history, believed that every human being longs to be accepted exactly as they are, not admired, not fixed, not judged, simply understood. Yet intelligent people often become experts at understanding everyone except themselves. They can explain another person's fears with astonishing clarity. They can identify emotional wounds in friends, family members, even strangers. But when it comes to their own pain, they intellectualize it. Instead of saying, "I'm hurt," they ask, "Why do I feel hurt?" Instead of crying, they analyze the reason for crying. Instead of healing, they investigate healing. Knowledge becomes a substitute for experience, and experience quietly slips away. The heart does not speak the language of logic. It speaks the language of vulnerability. Unfortunately, vulnerability feels terrifying to people who can predict hundreds of possible outcomes. What if they reject me? What if they leave? What if they misunderstand me? What if I become another lesson instead of someone's future? Every possibility feels real. Every risk feels enormous. So they wait. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect person, the perfect certainty. But life has never rewarded perfect timing. It rewards courage, and courage always arrives before certainty. There is another invisible struggle few people ever notice. Highly intelligent individuals often become emotionally independent at a very young age, sometimes because they felt misunderstood, sometimes because they learned that nobody could answer the questions they carried inside, sometimes because life forced them to grow up too quickly. Whatever the reason, they stop expecting emotional rescue. They become their own counselor, their own teacher, their own protector, their own best friend. From the outside, this looks admirable. Inside, it can become exhausting because even the strongest mind grows tired of carrying every burden alone. There comes a point where independence quietly transforms into isolation. The difference between the two is almost invisible. Independence says, I can do this alone. Isolation says, I have no choice but to do this alone. That single difference changes an entire life. One creates freedom, the other creates loneliness. Perhaps that is why some of history's greatest thinkers often describe themselves as outsiders, not because they hated humanity, but because they struggled to find people willing to explore the same questions. The deeper your questions become, the smaller your circle often grows. Not everyone wants to discuss mortality, meaning, purpose, consciousness, freedom, identity. Most people are busy surviving. Very few have the time or the willingness to examine existence itself. So the intelligent mind begins walking a quieter path, reading more, speaking less, observing everything, revealing almost nothing. Eventually, people assume they are emotionally distant, cold, mysterious. But appearances can be deceptive. Behind that silence is often someone who has simply grown tired of being misunderstood, someone who still believes in connection, but no longer believes connection comes easily. And yet, despite everything, despite the overthinking, despite the caution, despite the loneliness, despite the invisible walls, there remains one question that refuses to disappear. Is there a way out? Can a deeply analytical mind ever experience genuine peace without pretending to be someone it is not? The answer begins with a truth that most intelligent people spend years avoiding. The greatest obstacle standing between them and happiness is not the world. It is the impossible standard they have created for themselves. There is a quiet voice that follows highly intelligent people almost everywhere they go. It does not shout. It does not demand attention. It simply whispers. You could have done better. No matter how much they achieve, it is never enough. A successful career becomes proof that they should have started sooner. A healthy relationship becomes a reminder of every mistake they almost made. A personal victory quickly transforms into another impossible expectation. For a moment, they feel proud. Then the mind moves the finish line, again and again and again. This is the invisible trap of perfectionism. Most people think perfectionism is about wanting everything to be flawless. It is not, at its deepest level. Perfectionism is the fear that being imperfect will make you unworthy of love, respect, or acceptance. It convinces people that they must become extraordinary before they deserve to feel at peace. But life refuses to work that way. The finish line keeps moving, because it was never real to begin with. The intelligent mind often creates an ideal version of itself. The person who never says the wrong thing. The person who never fails. The person who never gets emotionally attached too quickly. The person who always makes the right decision. The person who never wastes time. The person who is always in control. It is a beautiful image, and a cruel one, because no human being can live inside that image forever. Eventually, reality wins. Mistakes happen. People disappoint us. Plans collapse. Dreams change. Time passes, and suddenly the intelligent person feels something they rarely admit: failure. Not because they actually failed, but because reality refused to match the impossible standards inside their imagination. This creates a painful split. There is the real self, and there is the imagined self. The greater the distance between them, the greater the suffering becomes. Carl Jung believed that every person wears a mask the world can see. He called it the persona. It is the version of ourselves that earns approval. The successful one, the confident one, the calm one, the intelligent one. But behind that mask lives another self, a self that becomes tired, afraid, confused, lonely. A self that sometimes wants to stop pretending to have all the answers. The tragedy is that many intelligent people become so attached to their persona that they slowly lose contact with who they really are. They become experts at appearing strong, while secretly longing for permission to be vulnerable. They tell everyone, "I'm fine," even when they haven't truly felt fine for years. Because intelligence often creates another dangerous belief. If I can understand my emotions, I should be able to control them. But emotions do not obey logic. They are not mathematical equations. They are signals. Sometimes they need to be felt, not solved. Imagine standing in the middle of the ocean during a storm. Trying to stop the waves would be impossible. The only thing you can learn is how to float. The same is true for the human mind. Peace does not come from controlling every thought. It comes from learning which thoughts deserve your attention. For years, intelligent people chase certainty. They believe certainty will finally allow them to relax. If I understand enough, if I earn enough, if I become successful enough, if I choose the perfect partner, if I make no mistakes, then I'll finally feel at peace. But every achievement simply creates another question, another goal, another mountain. The search never ends because the problem was never outside. It was the belief that peace had to be earned. The truth is far more uncomfortable. You cannot outperform insecurity. You cannot outthink loneliness. You cannot achieve your way into self-worth. Real confidence is born the moment you stop treating your value as something that must be proven. It begins when you realize that being human is not a flaw. It is the one thing every person shares. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once suggested that anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. The intelligent mind sees countless possibilities. That sounds empowering. But endless possibilities can also become endless pressure. What if I choose the wrong life? What if I waste my potential? What if 10 years from now I regret everything? Those questions feel responsible. Yet they quietly steal the present moment. Life is not experienced in 10 years. It is experienced now, one conversation, one sunrise, one quiet evening, one deep breath, one genuine smile. The people who seem happiest are not always the ones who have solved life. Often they are the ones who have stopped demanding that life make perfect sense. That realization changes everything. Because intelligence reaches its highest form not when it knows every answer, but when it finally becomes comfortable living beside unanswered questions. There is a strange freedom in saying, "I don't know." There is wisdom in admitting, "I was wrong." There is strength in asking for help, and there is extraordinary courage in allowing yourself to be seen exactly as you are, not the polished version. Not the impressive version, the real version, the version that still has fears, still has doubts, still has scars. Because connection is never built through perfection. It is built through honesty. Ironically, the very imperfections intelligent people spend years hiding are often the qualities that allow others to trust them. The walls begin to fall. The mask becomes lighter. The silence becomes peaceful instead of lonely. For the first time in years, the mind stops trying to win against itself. And in that quiet moment, something remarkable begins to happen, not because the world has changed, but because the person finally has. Yet one final truth remains, a truth so simple that most intelligent people overlook it for their entire lives. The purpose of intelligence was never to separate you from humanity. Its purpose was to help you understand it. And understanding means nothing if it is not accompanied by compassion. If you have listened this far, perhaps you recognize something in yourself. Perhaps you have spent years believing that your loneliness was a flaw, that your endless questions made you different, that your restless mind was something to fix. But what if you have been asking the wrong question all along? Instead of asking, "Why am I alone?" perhaps the real question is, "What kind of people am I searching for?" There is a profound difference. Loneliness is not always the absence of people. Sometimes it is the absence of understanding. And understanding cannot be forced. It must be discovered. Many intelligent people spend years trying to fit into conversations that were never meant for them. They laugh at jokes they don't find funny. They hide the questions that truly matter. They become smaller so that others feel comfortable. But every time you hide your authentic self, you move one step further away from the people who could have genuinely understood you. The irony is heartbreaking. The more you pretend to belong everywhere, the less you truly belong anywhere. Real connection begins the moment performance ends. It begins when you stop trying to impress and start allowing yourself to be seen. Not everyone will understand you. And that is perfectly okay. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. Even the greatest thinkers in history were misunderstood in their own time. Socrates was condemned. Van Gogh died believing he had failed. Nikola Tesla spent much of his life in isolation. History is filled with people whose ideas were accepted only after they were gone. Their loneliness did not mean they lacked value. It meant they were walking a different path. But there is an important lesson hidden inside their stories. None of them changed the world by withdrawing from it forever. At some point, they chose to share what they had discovered. Your mind is a remarkable tool. It can imagine futures that do not yet exist. It can recognize patterns invisible to others. It can solve problems that seem impossible. But it was never designed to replace the human heart. Your greatest strength is not your intelligence. It is your ability to combine intelligence with empathy, to understand without becoming cynical, to observe without becoming emotionally distant, to think deeply without forgetting how to feel deeply. That is wisdom. Wisdom is not knowing more than everyone else. Wisdom is knowing what truly matters. And in the end, what matters is rarely found in endless analysis. It is found in moments, a quiet conversation with someone who truly listens, a sunrise that asks nothing from you, a family member who smiles because you came home, a friend who accepts your silence without demanding an explanation, a stranger whose kindness restores your faith in people. These moments cannot be calculated. They can only be lived. Perhaps life was never asking you to become perfect. Perhaps it was asking you to become present, to stop treating every mistake as evidence against yourself, to stop carrying every disappointment into the future, to stop believing that your worth depends on how much you know, because one day, none of us will be remembered for having all the answers. We will be remembered for how we made people feel, for the love we gave, for the courage we showed, for the lives we touched. So if you have spent years feeling like an outsider, do not let that feeling become your identity. You are not broken because you think differently. You are not weak because you feel deeply. And you are not destined to be alone forever. The right people may be rare, but rare does not mean impossible. Keep learning, keep questioning, keep growing. But do not forget to live while you are searching for meaning, because the purpose of intelligence is not to escape humanity, it is to understand it. And the purpose of understanding is love. If this message found you at the right time, then perhaps your loneliness was never a sign that something was wrong with you. Perhaps it was simply preparing you to recognize the people who will one day understand you without asking you to become someone else. Until that day comes, protect your curiosity. Protect your kindness. Protect your hope, because in a world that often rewards noise, the quiet mind that chooses wisdom over ego is far rarer than genius, and perhaps that quiet strength has been your greatest gift all along.